Hey, welcome to Oh Brother News. I'm Gabe,
I'm James.
and we're brothers. And this week, oh brother, we're underprepared brothers, so we're gonna wing it. This will probably be the one where we wing it. Uh, okay, so you were telling me about how Indiana is
Well, we're
one of
joining
17
lawsuit.
states that's doing what now?
Yeah, it's actually Texas, of course. Red Texas. They want to do away with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, specifically, they started because um, there was rules that that included gender identity. You know, and they don't agree with that. They say they should be able to discriminate against somebody who's trans, but they are not asking the courts to simply say, "Hey, there's two sexes, man and woman, and that's that. And we don't agree with these rules." They are asking the courts, they petition to say Section 504 is unconstitutional, right? Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act, it does a whole bunch of things. It has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with gender identity.
Of
It says,
course.
you have to have, you have to have tools and machines that would work for people who have wheelchairs, you know, um, you have to, like, for a hospital, you can't discriminate against somebody because they have a disability. Uh, Websites have to work with people who are blind or low vision. Schools must include students with disabilities. And they don't like that shit, man. Can't be teaching. Or they don't want to teach kids with disabilities. They want to make sure all those kids in the South can work. So
So I'm just gonna
yeah,
take this back to pre-World War II, excuse me, pre-World War II Germany over and over again.
the Gilded Age.
First we stop helping them, then we're
We
like, well,
exploit
hey,
them.
look, these people aren't supported by our society, so we should probably just send them to the camps where they can get the support that they need, and then they go off to the, don't call it a concentration camp.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
there's when they get in a little bit of hot water in their question about why in the world would you try and do this, Indiana at least, they're saying that they don't want to do it, not because they want to discriminate, just because it's too expensive. Expensive taking care of these damn people with disabilities. So stop doing that. Money. I'm sure
Yeah.
Jesus would have agreed. Jesus would have
So
agreed.
you can take like $3.7 trillion from uh, from America's billionaires without reducing the number of billionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we can't afford to put in wheelchair ramps and have a disability teacher. That's cool. That's who we are.
Yeah.
Great.
All
Love
in
that
this,
for us.
and all in the under the guise of saving money. You know.
Saving, that's no, because like that's what it is. You know what it is? Like
They want more
uh
money for themselves.
no, like that's really what America's been doing, right? Like we've been spending, you know, like a few $1,000s a kid on kids with disabilities. We've been building all these ramps and like having teachers for them and like operating different buses. And then we had to buy the other buses. Like sometimes the bus has a lift, you
Yeah.
know, like all these doctors' offices with like ramps. That adds up. And that's why America's falling behind China. Like that's why we're losing our spot in the world. Like and honestly, that's the first place that we should cut. Like, it doesn't make sense to cut from anywhere else before cutting from like disabled children.
I know. I mean, how
Yeah,
many
like that's
doors?
we're spending most of our money there.
How many doors could Pete Hegseth build with all that money? I mean,
tell
it's
me, tell
that's.
me about Pete Hegseth's emergency door.
Oh, actually, it wasn't the door. Sorry, it wasn't the door. The door reminded us of Ryan Zinke when Ryan Zinke was in the first Trump administration. I think was it Ryan Zinke? He was Secretary of
Oh,
Interior.
was he like the EPA guy?
I think he was Secretary of Interior, but But yeah, back then, I mean, he was the one just freaking milking the government for money, including like 150. He had the $150,000 door put in his office.
Somebody like had a skiff built. I thought it was the EPA guy had like a skiff built in his. A skiff is God, it's an
Yeah,
acronym for something
Secured,
like Secure Information Facility, something like that.
uh,
Secure
secure clearance.
Compartmentalized Information
Here, I'll
Facility.
tell you right now. It's a sensitive compartmented information facility, and
Okay, yeah, it's
really,
basically just a place where you can talk about
it's a
top
room.
secret stuff
It's
safely.
a room. That's what it is. It's a room.
Okay, but it's not just a room. It's a room that is like soundproof and that has like special
It guards against
secure data
electronic
connection,
surveillance and things like that. Yeah, I mean, like president.
EMP protection. I mean, it's a fancy room, okay, but like, you don't. We have them. They're necessary, but you don't need them. The head of the EPA doesn't need one. He's
Correct.
not out here talking about, where the bodies are buried or what the nuclear codes are. So
Yeah.
he doesn't need one, but he had one built,
Yeah.
and
Well,
now
I mean,
apparently,
honestly, the EPA. I mean, if you're actually in charge of EPA or even Interior Secretary, there probably are times where you need to be in a skiff and talk about things. I mean,
yeah,
just
but you
think
can
about
go to
nuclear
one. You don't need
facilities
one
or
in
something.
your office.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like the thing with this guy was like the reason he wanted a skiff in his office is because he was the head of the EPA, but before that he was an oil lobbyist. So like he wasn't there to protect the environment. He was there to gut the agency that regulated his ability to drill and earn money from drilling by doing it more dirty.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want anyone to be able to hear him as he like did the horrible things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Pete
So wait, so what
Hegseth.
did yeah, Heg says?
Um, uh, well, well, basically, they build. He had to get his house. He had to get work done on his house. You know what I mean? And so, your tax dollars, our tax money, just went to because now he's Secretary of Defense now, right? So now that you're Secretary of Defense, it is time to fix the house on the taxpayer dime. So he charged the government. He charged taxpayers $137,297. $137,297. We gave our tax money to for his housing work, including $49,900 for an emergency paint job on his house. Because it's an emergency, man. I'm Secretary of Defense, man. No time like the present. Need to
you
have it
gotta
now.
you gotta you gotta paint over
Yeah,
the
yeah. It's a
all
4,000.
the alcohol labels wallpaper that he had.
Yeah. So I mean, because he's going into government housing. I guess he's getting a new house as part of this. That's technically owned by the government, right? And so he's going to go there, and of course, hey, house provided for me, cool. Let's get it all fixed up, man. I want to have this place looking nice. So just bill the taxpayers $150,000 to live in a nice place as long as you're Secretary of Defense, you know.
So
So
there is a $35,000 threshold for operation, maintenance, and repair of a government home that will be occupied by him.
unless
So
it's an emergency, I guess.
he needed another $132,000 just to live.
Yeah, yeah, and they're worth $3 million. I mean, he's worth $3 million. He can afford to get his house painted himself, and I bet you if he paid for it himself, it wouldn't cost $50,000 either. But yeah, he has a 77-acre home in Tennessee that's worth 3.2 million. You know,
It's
he's
common
got
for
money.
secretaries of defense to live in private housing,
Yeah,
according to military.com, as former Biden administration Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin lived in a nearly $3 million, 8,700 square foot house in Great Falls, Virginia, while
yeah,
holding the position.
yeah,
Task and Purpose reported.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah, he probably wanted the house repainted because he wanted to touch the walls that a black person touched. I bet you that's my take on that. But why it was an emergency?
I mean, guess he's moving in right away, so
Yeah. Anyway, that was that.
obnoxious.
Yeah, and yeah, but waste, fraud, and abuse. Don't worry, guys. We have Elon Musk trying to make sure there's no waste, fraud, and abuse, except for his own. So yeah, and luckily the courts have been so far. Well, I mean, we don't. I still don't know for a fact. I don't know if we know for a fact yet if the Trump administration is actually complying with all the court orders. But so far, the courts, including Trump appointees, are blocking everything they've been trying to do about firing everybody. Like, oh yeah, when they got rid of USAID, we talked about this a little bit last week, but we never touched on just how ridiculous it also was when they were like immediately saying, "All right, everybody, you're all on unpaid administrative leave." That left, thousands of people overseas because some of the people who work for USAID are in places like, Libya or Syria or, over the, I mean, they're all over the world in dangerous places. And basically they were essentially told, oh, pack your shit. You're out of a job, man. Find your own way out. So, but the
Oh
courts
yeah,
stopped
that's
all that.
pretty.
The courts stopped all that. They not only stopped everybody who was being fired, but they also ordered the Trump administration to re what do you call it, like rehire, allow them back to work and pay the 500 people who they had already gotten rid of. Um, they stopped them on the FBI agents that they're trying to get rid of everybody in the FBI who has had any dealings with all of the illegality of the Trump administration on
I
January
mean,
6th.
for now, but they put out they
Name.
put out enough information to know who everyone is.
Oh, they actually the acting uh, the uh, the acting head of the FBI actually gave them the names to the Justice Department.
Oh,
Not only
great.
just a list of the numbers, he went ahead and they gave him all the names of every single person. Um, yeah,
So,
but
okay,
Cash
just
Patel and Cash Patel. Remember you talked about Cash Patel got held off
yeah,
for a week, and then you've heard the news, right? $30,000 from Russia.
I
Granted, it's
heard.
only $30,000. I'm sure he's a lot slimier than $30,000 worth, but you can talk
So
about
the
that one if
the
you want.
Cash Patel thing was actually. Let me go back to the hegseth thing because so I googled it and I found two articles. The first one I was reading was I don't remember the link, but it'll be in the show notes. It's in the Notion now. But the second one was from Yahoo News. And the Yahoo News one is interesting because it says that Pete Hegseth did not request the $137,000 in repairs and upgrades to the military housing at Fort McNair that will become his residence, according to U.S. official familiar with the work order, who says the Army undertook the repairs on its own since the more than 100-year-old home had sat vacant for a year and needed security upgrades. So, I mean,
That's what he said.
it's not like, so I mean, I guess this is, I guess he said, she said, but somebody from the military is saying he didn't request this. We're
Mm.
just fixing up the property that we're letting him use, and that this is money being spent on military property, not Pete Hegseth's property.
Well, if that's the official word of the Defense Department under the leadership of Pete Hegseth, then I guess we have to assume that's true.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what's. Yeah,
Who knows, man? Who knows?
I'm
But
sure that like some of it makes sense, but also I'm sure that they probably had another place they could have put him that they wouldn't have had to fix. You know?
maybe, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Or maybe they need to fix that place anyway. So I don't know. Maybe it's not as unreasonable. I just don't want to, I want to hammer them when they need to be hammered when they do something that they
Shit.
should be hammered for, but I don't want to hammer them just
Hey,
to hammer
Pete
them.
Hegseth can get hammered on his own by 8 o'clock in the morning, man. Don't even talk about that. Pete Hegseth can get hammered by 9 o'clock in the morning, as people have said at Fox News. He was always hammered.
That's true. Pete Hegseth hammers himself all the
But he
time.
did say he said he would be willing to stop drinking if
Yeah, but
he's
he didn't say
confirmed.
what. He wasn't like, I'll
That's
stop
true.
drinking. But no one assumes he's like never going to consume liquid again. You know?
Assuming things, other things people assume. People assumed, like Brian Tyler Cohen, they were laughing about this clip. Trump the other day in an interview, they were asking him if JD Vance is uh, the next what do you call it? One
Like the
waiting in the
heir
wings.
apparent
Yeah,
to the Republican
the heir
Party,
apparent. Yes, the heir, to heir.
the,
To continue on in
the
2028.
next Kamala
Yeah,
Kamala
they said,
Vance.
is he your heir? Is he the one who's going to continue this MAGA thing in 2028? No, and he just didn't didn't skip a beat. Trump was nope, nope, no. I don't see him that way. No, I don't see that. He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy, and he does good things. But no, I don't see him that way. I don't see that way. You know what I mean? I was laughing. I'm thinking, is it because he's not the heir, or Is it because Trump's not planning on leaving in 2028? Is he not the heir
Both.
for 2028, or both? Or is it
Both.
because Elon is the one running the show? And God, man, if we can play video, I really wish we could play that clip on an endless loop of Elon's kid sitting there taunting Donald Trump the whole time he's in the Oval Office. Donald Trump's sitting there like a little kid at like a little desk. Elon Musk is standing over him with his stupid baseball hat and a little blue T-shirt with a jacket on, and looking like a moron, and
He
talking
looks like
about
a
how
dude wearing it. He's wearing a nice coat. He looks fine.
yeah, yeah, baseball hats in the Oval Office. I'm sure that was allowed under every other president. But anyway, not that I really care that much. I'm not like a fashion police, but generally speaking, it's the Oval Office is the Oval Office, whatever. But either way, Trump sitting there like a little kid, Elon standing up there talking about how we don't really have a democracy anyway in this country. We don't have a democracy. We have a bureaucracy, meanwhile, yeah, he's saying we don't have a democracy anyway. It's that's a lie. And his kid is standing there, and it wasn't just once. He said it multiple times. The kid just keeps looking at Donald Trump, walking over to Donald Trump, looking at him, and going, "I want you to shush your mouth. Shush your mouth. I want you to shush your mouth. I want you to shush your mouth. Shush your mouth. Shush your mouth. I want you to shush your mouth." I'm like, holy crap, man! Like, and of course, Donald Trump he only loves young girls as far as kids go. You know what I mean? But
Who he would probably be dating one day.
well, well, or maybe not dating, but he's done other things with little kids.
No, I'm referring to like the quote he made. It
His
was
daughter.
from 2016. It was somebody who's like,
I was thinking
it's
about
like,
the Epstein
oh,
files.
she's a very pretty young lady. Like maybe I'll be dating her in 10 years or so.
Yeah, my mind was going to the Epstein files. Donald Trump's name's fucking all over.
That too.
Yeah. But yeah, and the fucking Miss Teen universe or whatever, how he always used to walk in there on the little girls and stuff like that is creepy. Anyway, yeah.
Yes, very creepy.
Ugh. But yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting though that Elon's kid just kept telling him to shush his mouth, and Trump hates kids usually. He's just sitting there like with this look on his face. It is kind of funny in a way, but yeah, still kind of sad because they're trying, man. They're trying to just get rid of democracy, and yeah. Anyway,
So a couple other things that we can choose which to jump around to, but I've been hearing about. Well, RFK Jr. was confirmed. I'm
oh
sure there's
god,
going to be some fallout from that. And then also, excuse me. And then also, uh, Trump is ordering federal agencies to study reciprocal tariffs. You know, after a year of saying, yeah, we're going to do tariffs, now is the time to learn what they actually do. Um, and also, I heard he announced some steel tariffs.
yep, aimed at Canada,
Yeah, and then also there are federal employee layoffs beginning at the Department of Education.
which is probably going to be blocked in court at least for a while. Yeah, um,
Well, so
yeah, they're trying to hollow out the entire government. I mean,
but like
basically,
the
they're
thing
trying
with
to hollow out the
these,
whole
yeah, like the thing with these layoffs, like you were talking about the USAID ones earlier,
thing. Mm-hmm.
and like even with them like reversing some of that after courts, some of that doesn't matter. Like the people who were in this hospital, the hospital stopped getting supplies, stopped getting funding. The patients had to leave. The
Mm-hmm.
doctors had to leave. The hospital shut down. They can't just like turn it. You can't just turn
On.
a whole hospital off and on.
Correct.
Every few days. So
That's their
like
goal. That's their goal.
with a lot of
Destroy
these
it.
things,
Doesn't matter if it's legal or not. Doesn't matter if it sticks in court or not. If you can kill it and destroy everything, and then the court says, "Oh, well, you can't do that," then, oh, okay, oops, my bad. It's already destroyed. That's what their goal is.
yeah, and like where
Wrecking ball everything.
people, not everyone can afford to just like be indefinitely not receiving a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So as people are getting, you know, funding
Yeah, and
freezes,
yeah, the
paycheck
letter they're
freezes, and
sending to
whatever.
everybody. Yeah, the letter they're sending to everybody says the agency finds based on your performance. based on your performance, you have not demonstrated that your further employment at the agency would be in the public interest.
Well, yeah, they got to have grounds.
Yeah.
And the thing
Well,
that I didn't realize initially too was like with the fork in the road letter, they sent that to like everybody in the FBI and everybody in the CIA and everybody who works in like the federal prison system, like all federal employees, which is hundreds of thousands of people, which is,
mhm,
it's like a shocking number of important things that you don't want to just like, oh, we'll just fire up all the people, lol. Like a lot of those jobs are really doing really important stuff where even if you were determined to change who was doing that work, you probably don't want to just like have them all resign immediately, you know?
yeah. But I mean, they want to get rid of the whole thing anyway. They want to get rid of the Department of Education. I mean, they want to get rid of everything, which is so funny too, man. I mean, God, the amount of money they spend, all these things, the amount of, even if they got rid of all of these agencies completely, right? I mean, like, I was trying to find that tweet that Elon put out about Consumer Financial Protection Board. They want to get rid of that, return all the money of these agencies back to the people, right? I think they had something like $700 million, right, in their account for funding of the Consumer Financial Protection Board. It's like that money needs to go back to the citizens, and that sounds like a lot of money if you can't do math, you know. Considering what the department does and how much money it saves people and how much Americans have benefited from it, $700 million is nothing, you know.
Mm.
Department of Education, the amount of money they spend. I mean, yeah, the savings are a joke. The savings are just it's to kind of make dumb people believe that they're cutting costs and being good for the spending of the country so they can jam through $1 trillion tax cuts for the rich.
I mean, that's what the Department of Education does. Like the ADA Act stuff we were talking about at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Department of Education does. That's one of their big things is that they send states the funding for special
Mm-hmm.
needs
Exactly,
kids.
but they don't need
You
to be
know,
taught. Make the parents of those kids have to pay for everything themselves.
like that's the really disingenuous thing about the Texas lawsuit because it's like Texas isn't even paying for it. The federal government is paying for it. So for them to be like at the state level, like, oh, we don't want to do it because it's expensive, but it, like California is actually paying for it. Texas, what the fuck are you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's never. Yeah, it's
Every accusation a confession.
yeah. So, what would people rather have? I'm hoping if anybody listens, anybody else had at least one point gone through what I did. I think you did, Gabe, back in the day. I think almost everybody did. It used to be when you used your debit card, right? Let's say you're not flush with cash, but you got money. Say you got 500 bucks in your account, and you would have to you made a couple small purchases, $5, $10, $20, $15, $20, and then you had one charge that was, oh crap, that one was going to put me over that big charge at like 4 days later. Oh man, that made me dip like $2 below my balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you knew you were going to get an overdraft charge if you didn't get that money in your account, right? That before that day's over. What they would do, what the banks used to do all the time, all the big banks did it. They would leave all of your transactions in a pending state for like weeks on end, and then they always did that purposefully because then if your account ever went negative off of the last transaction, they would then go process them in reverse order and make the biggest one that happened a week later go first, and then process a whole bunch of small ones
Yeah, they
afterwards
process them in
to try to pop you with
descending order of size.
to try to make you get multiple overdraft fees, even if the other ones were days earlier.
Yeah.
That alone has saved people, God,
Yeah, that
Millions,
happened to me. Like
millions,
my
millions of
first
dollars.
bank account was with
Mm-hmm.
Fifth Third, and I got beat up in exactly that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had like a part-time minimum wage job. I'm like 18. I'm like riding my bicycle to work. I have like a few $100s and like no financial literacy.
Yeah, and actually,
And
that one rule, right, actually saved U.S. people, like the U.S. population. It saved us five. It saved people $5 billion in charges just from that one change. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau did five
total or
billion
like per
total.
year?
Oh, that was annual. That was annually.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like
Five
an annual number.
$5 billion annually. People got back.
And that's like 15, 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah, so that's how much people have saved just from that one rule of them. Now, Elon Musk says, we got to get that money that the CFPB has and give it back to the Americans. That would be $2 one time. Here's think about how many people there are in the world.
Yeah.
There's 350 million people in America. That's $2 a pop. So, what would you rather do? Have collectively Americans pay $5 billion a year more, or get a one-time check, I guess, for $2? There
Yeah,
you
I'll
go.
take the
Yeah,
I'll take the check.
he'll take the check for $2. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can use that. You could use that $2 to pay for all of the stuff for your special needs child. Because $2, I mean, that is going to go a long way to paying for all those things that your special needs kids, needs out of pocket. Because it costs too much for the doctor's office to put in a ramp. You know.
Exactly. I'll
Yeah.
build my own ramp
I'll build my own ramp for that two
for
dollars. I got two
for two
dollars back.
dollars. I got $2.
Yeah. It's evil. It's evil, and the sad thing is, people buy it. People buy it all the time. The same people who need help from the federal government, the same people who try to collect benefits and try to cheat on their taxes and try and do all these little things here. They're all talking bad about the government. They're the ones who,
Aren't they
the
talking
ones
about getting
cheering it
rid
on
of the
most.
IRS also?
What's that?
Are they talking about getting rid of the IRS?
Well, they've talked about stuff like that for a while, but I don't. I mean, they've been talking about stuff like that. I don't think they really want to get rid of the IRS. They just don't want the IRS being doing audits on rich people, which kind of goes hand in hand with the other thing the Department of Justice announced earlier this week, which is they are no longer going to investigate white collar crime. They're
Really?
gone.
They
Yep,
just
they're
said they're
not.
just not going to do it at all?
Nope. And the FARA, the FARA, Foreign Affairs Registration Act. They also announced they are no longer going to enforce that.
Foreign Agent Registration Act, you mean?
Yeah, Foreign Agents Registration Act. For things like when,
So you don't have to register as a foreign agent to act to the
correct.
benefit of a foreign government?
Correct. Yeah. So that way you could be, say, a defense secretary or a crackpot health and human services secretary.
Wait, could you be
And
president?
you could be a president, right? And you could be
Interesting.
getting paid by a foreign government millions and millions of dollars to make public policy in America be what that country wants. And
Okay,
you no longer even have to disclose it.
but surely you couldn't be like, I don't know, like surely you couldn't be like Elon Musk doing that, right? Like that wouldn't be allowed.
It wouldn't be allowed. I think it'd be encouraged if it was Elon Musk. I mean,
I see. Yeah,
yeah,
I was
but yeah,
slow rolling the sarcasm too much, I
yes,
guess.
I know. But oh, so what's that? So they're not going to enforce FARA anymore. They're not going after white collar crime anymore. They were the FEC chairman. They wanted to get rid of the FEC chairman, right? Um, because we don't want to worry about free and fair elections anymore. So yeah.
Oh
So
yes, they did. So like the FEC I know a little bit about. So I actually listened to an interview with this person. So the FEC was set up to be um, a bipartisan
yeah, there's three
committee.
Democrats, three
So
Republicans. Yeah.
yes, it's always got three Democrats and three Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
and every year they choose a new person from among their six people to be the chairperson, and
Mm-hmm.
it always has to be from the opposite party of who it was last year. And so this year it was. a Democrat, and she had been there for
For a while.
like 20 something years.
Yeah.
She had been working there. Um, and it's important that they get rid of someone, because if they get rid of someone, then they no longer have a quorum and they can't make any decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So they fired
Illegally.
this. Yeah, they illegally fired this person who, like, they're not allowed to fire them. It's part of the act that, like, set this up, is making it so that they can't pull it for partisan reasons. So
Yeah.
yeah, so like she actually is considering her options, because her firing is illegal, and it keeps the board from being able to do anything. And it's really similar to what they did with the National Labor Relations Board. They fired one of the people on that board. I don't remember how many people that is or which person they fired, but they fired somebody on that board so that they can no longer make decisions. They can no longer make rulings. And one of the types of rulings that they do is like um, when the employees of a certain business, like say Amazon, like say you're like a shipping facility, like a warehouse, an Amazon warehouse somewhere, and you decided to form a union, you would then go to the National Labor Relations Board and say, "Hey, we decided to form a union," and they would approve your union, if you did it properly. And so this happened actually. Some Amazon warehouse workers formed a union. It's the first time that it had happened, and then they fired one of the people off of the National Labor Relations Board, which made it so that the board cannot vote, because it can't vote unless it has a quorum. And so without one person, it can't vote. So that union was like, yeah, you're not recognized as a union because the National Labor Relations Board didn't officially approve you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. So, uh, anyway, so illegal firings, and so far all the illegal firings are getting Trump judges are ruling against them. You know what I mean? But I haven't seen any news stories. I don't know if you've had any time. We said we haven't had time this week, really, but I haven't seen any news that the people are actually able to come back to work after the courts rule that they have to. Um, so yeah, I've really been waiting to try to see that. You know what I mean? Because I see that they keep blocking it, and the Department of Justice lawyers, like if you're watching like lawyer shows or podcasts like Democracy Watch, Democracy Doc, these other things here like Glenn Kirshner and Mark Elias and all these guys. They're all. I mean, it's proven fact. Department of Justice doesn't lose. I mean, when they take a case to court, they win like 98, 99% of the time, because they don't take things to court unless they have a sewed up, buttoned, perfect, absolutely rock solid slam dunk case. They don't take
Mm.
stuff to court unless they win. But the Department of Justice has to keep going to court to try to defend themselves against all these illegal moves that Trump is doing. And so, Department of Justice, man, they are losing. They are they are literally batting zero so far. I don't think they've won a case yet. All this stupid shit he's doing keeps getting blocked. Um, but I haven't seen any evidence that they are abiding by the law, or that what's happening after the courts rule this. So, um, yeah, maybe that'll be for
Wow.
next week. I'll really try and spend a week to try and see if the fact that they keep losing in court matters. Because I mean, Trump always said Andrew Jackson was his favorite president, and we all know why Andrew Jackson was his favorite president. In addition to committing genocide and killing tons and tons of Indians, one of the most famous things happened was that the Cherokee Nation won in the U.S. Supreme Court, not their treaty, saying that the United States government, you cannot remove them from their land. That is their land. It's a treaty. It's binding. No, Jackson, you lose. And then he famously just, sent the military in there and said, give a big middle finger to the court, to the Supreme Court, and just did it anyway. Said, hey, go ahead and enforce it. And he just sent the military in anyway, and then killed all the Indians and moved them off their land, the Trail of Tears and all that.
Mm.
So that's his favorite president for a reason. And I'm wondering, with all these people, with all the Cash Patels and Pete Hegseths and the freaking dumb. I don't mean to make a dumb blonde joke, but the dumb blonde press secretary, all these people who have no soul and were just working for him and doing whatever the hell they want, do you really think that any of them are going to be the types to do a Mike Pence move and say, no, that's a red line I will not cross? Supreme Court said that's illegal. We are not going to do that. I I don't believe any of them will stand up for the rule of law.
Yeah, no, they got rid of all those guys the first
Yeah,
time.
I
Like
mean, they
they're
actually doing the whole oaths. I mean, they're even the loyalty oaths. You know,
yeah,
to Donald Trump.
yeah. They sweated all that out. They sweated all those, rhinos out last time.
Yep. Also makes me think of Inauguration Day, which I don't think we ever talked about this either. On Inauguration Day, maybe we did talk about it. I know this
About the
is really
flag?
no about what how he forgot to put his hand on the Bible. Remember how people
Oh
were
yeah, I did see
swearing an
that.
oath
Yeah.
on the Bible? You're doing that? Yeah, you didn't even touch it. He's like Melania's just standing there holding a book like an idiot, and he just
Well, he did, dude. You don't want to burst into flames at
yeah.
your inauguration.
But yeah, I don't believe any of these people are gonna actually give a shit about the law. I mean, they don't. They haven't yet. So
Well, but okay. On the topic of people giving a shit about the law, um, the U.S. attorney. I was just looking for her
oh
name. I think it's Daniel Sassoon, the Attorney
yes,
General
Eric Adams.
from
Yes,
Southern District of New York. Her and
mm-hmm,
two officials in Washington resigned after the Justice Department ordered charges against Eric Adams, mayor of New York, to be
mm-hmm.
dropped. And then
Told you.
if you're looking at the New York Times website, like right next to that is uh, uh, after meeting with Trump's border czar, Adams
Mm-hmm.
opens Rikers to ICE agents.
Told you.
So, I mean, the tit for tat is
Told
just
you last
right
week.
there in the top three headlines.
I think I told you last week. It was last week or the week before when I said how Eric Adams, the feds prosecutors going after him for corruption and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And he's like, yeah, he's just making a deal with Trump to stay out of prison. So of
Yeah.
course you got somebody who's taking bribes and a super corrupt politician. He goes, oh, hey, don't go after me, and I'll help you do all your illegal, unconstitutional shit here in New York too. There you
So, like,
go.
if they're not processing white collar crime, does that mean that now is like the best time to white collar crime?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, I mean,
I mean,
we should definitely
it's.
get
I
on
mean,
that.
it's kind of like if you're the president of the United States and the Supreme Court said, hey, you cannot be investigated, prosecuted, tried. Nothing you do can be used against you. You are immune. What is the best time to start committing crimes? Once you have your immunity. The Department of Justice isn't going to look into any white collar crimes. There you go. Go for it. Unfortunately, most of us don't make enough money to go after the kind of white collar crime that the Department of Justice used to look into.
Hmm.
But, you know, but hey, maybe you can tell certain family members of yours, maybe they can start, making extra money, you know.
I'll pass that along. Yeah, I'll let them know.
Yeah,
Now's your time.
but yeah, Southern District, yeah, they're retiring now, right? Yeah, Justice Department lawyers quitting, resigning in protest because it's such a flagrant. Oh God, I mean, it was a slam dunk case against him too, but against Eric Adams. It was a slam dunk case, and instead of the slam dunk case taking out a corrupt mayor, they're just, oh, we're going to drop everything. We're going to drop everything. You know, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Are you familiar with the? I think it's called the Treaty of Munich.
Yeah. All
Tell us about it.
right. Why are we bringing that up right now, though?
Um, because I think that's what's happening with Trump and
Oh, okay.
Putin and Ukraine.
All right. Well, I mean, oh, that's right. The Ukraine stuff. Well, I'll give the podcast shortened summary. I'll give the Cliff's Notes version.
All
Right.
right.
All right. 1938, pre World War II. Germany after World War One wasn't supposed to have weapons. They weren't supposed to have, they demilitarized their, and Hitler started rearming against their treaties, right? they started sending troops in there to. It was a Sudetenland or something like that, right? Sudetenland, yeah. Where was it though? It was I don't. Oh, it's Czechoslovakia, right?
Mhm.
Was it? Yeah, Czechoslovakia. Yeah, okay, yes, Czechoslovakia. So yeah, it's a border area on the Czech. Well, now then Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic, or whatever you want to call it, right? And yeah, they basically marched in, just annexed it, took it over, right? And the Western countries, France, Britain, uh, is yeah,
Yeah,
France,
so it was
Britain. They were
Germany,
just like
Italy, Great
basically they
Britain,
wanted to make
France.
peace. Yeah, they wanted to make peace and say, hey, we don't have to go to war over this. Here, you take this. You take this. All right, go ahead and take it. We don't want war, And
Hmm.
it's what everybody sounds. Just everybody says appeasement. Appeasement didn't work in World War II. Appeasement didn't work. It never works. That's what they're talking about. It's like the original appeasement in the modern era.
Yeah, so Hitler had threatened to unleash a European war unless Sudetenland, a border
Yeah,
area of Czechoslovakia containing an ethnic German majority, was surrendered to Germany. The leaders of Britain, France, and Italy agreed to the German annexation of the
yeah.
Sudetenland in exchange for a pledge of peace from Hitler.
There you
Czechoslovakia, which was not a party to the Munich negotiations, agreed under
go. Not a
significant
party.
pressure from Britain and France.
Not a party to the negotiations over their own territory. Yes, that's where
So,
we're going with it.
so basically Hitler was like, "Hey, give me this land or I'm going to take it." And they were like, "All right, we'll give it to you." And they gave it to him. And we all know how that went because he didn't go, "All right, I got everything that I wanted. I'll just sit at home fat and happy." He thought, "Cool, that worked. Let's do it again."
Now, just imagine how much more Britain could have gotten if Winston Churchill was given a Churchill Tower. He probably could have gotten the whole country of Czechoslovakia.
A Churchill Tower? What do you mean?
Yeah, like kind of like a Trump Tower, you know.
Ah, yes, I see. What would you call it? Uh, a Mara Churchill.
Yeah. So yeah, Putin, Donald Trump has been talking to Putin a lot without Ukraine, and he doesn't feel it's anybody's business to know how often he and Putin talk because people were asking like, "Hey, when have you guys been talking?" We talk, we talk. I don't want to tell you how often we talk. I mean, I don't
But
know how often.
Russia still like denying or like not confirming that they're speaking?
I don't know.
'Cause I knew initially like
He
Trump was
denied
like,
it
"Oh
like a
yeah, we
week
talked the other
ago.
day," and then Russia was like, no comment.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can't trust anything that comes out of Trump's mouth. You can't trust anything that comes out of Putin's mouth. So I don't really give a shit what they say.
Right.
I
So
mean, hey, they were
yes,
denying any kind of context or collusion in the 2016 campaign. And then, I have a book back
server in
here.
Trump Tower.
I have a book back here called the Mueller Report. And it's pretty big, and it details how that was a bunch of like a crock of shit. They were colluding the whole time.
Yeah.
So I don't really care what they say. Uh, Trump, Putin. Trying to see if they've confirmed any of them. It's 4 days ago. He claims multiple calls with Putin. Right. Uh, Again, you don't know. We never know. We never know because Trump says an awful lot of things that don't happen. Was Putin one of those people who said, "Sir, sir, sir"? Tears in his eyes, tears in his eyes, begging him to end the war and telling Trump what a great man he is. I don't know. None of those stories are true. You know, Trump tells all these stories. He talked about. Remember, he was talking about the when Trump was talking about. I talked to the head of the New York Stock Exchange, and he told me he's the head of the New York Stock Exchange, very important man. And he came to me and he was like, "Thank you, President Trump. Thank you." Blah blah blah. And it turned out the whole thing was bullshit because the person who's in charge of the New York Stock Exchange isn't even a guy; it's a woman. So he makes stuff up all the time. Remember, he was talking about the helicopter crash, and it
I
wasn't
was
him.
thinking about the helicopter
Really Brown.
crash.
He makes stuff up so often, just whole cloth, just makes it up and just starts rambling on.
Are you telling me next? You're gonna tell me that he wasn't on a sinking boat that was an all electric boat, and then
No,
there were sharks in the
he
water.
never
That
said he
didn't
was
happen.
that. He never said that happened. He was always that was one of his little dementia moments where he was just
Imagining out loud.
Just thinking out loud about the possibilities. Like maybe you stick a light up, a really strong, powerful light up your ass, or you stick bleach in your veins. I mean, he riffs. He just comes up with these things sometimes, these scenarios. He just plays them out in his head, and diarrhea of the mouth comes out all over the country. You know, so who knows if it really did or not? I don't doubt that they've been talking. They've been giving him money his whole life. They've been keeping him afloat for decades and decades and decades. And, money laundering. I mean, God. So I wouldn't doubt they've talked. And Dmitry Peskov, yeah, they said he can neither confirm nor deny. So they didn't say anything.
Yeah, they said nothing.
Yeah, they said communications between Moscow and Washington occur through different channels, which means nothing. It could be Konstantin Kalimnik or somebody going back in there. It could be him sending some other agents in there. It could be him having hookers go pee on him and pass a note.
I mean, like, so. I mean, we know appeasement didn't work in the 30s. We know appeasement didn't work now because 2022 is 10 years after. Well, 2022 was 8 years after 2014 when they invaded and took Crimea and part of Donbass anyway. So, appeasement with Putin in particular, even if we're not just going to like the historical
Mm-hmm.
appeasement, you know, of Hitler, appeasement didn't work with Putin last time. He came for more. He's already come for more. He's in the middle of the coming for more part right now. So we know that like giving him anything is just going to mean that he comes for more later anyway.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so it's a huge mess. Like I don't think it's going to work. It's like, how do you think it's going to go? Like, do you think, what do you think the sort of agreement's going to be? Like, do you think he's going to give, uh, is he just going to make a deal with Putin? Because like, Ukraine's still going to have to, you know, decide on their own.
Well,
They're going to have to agree to the terms. America can't just negotiate on behalf of Ukraine.
well, they're also saying this other bullshit too to Ukraine, like trying to pressure them to have elections because that was one of Putin's latest propaganda things. Well, they can't really negotiate with Zelensky. He's not really a president. He's a dictator. He's illegitimate, which is pretty rich coming from Putin. He's
That's
illegitimate
really
because
rich.
he's illegitimate because they haven't had elections. He was supposed to leave office, and they didn't even allow elections. Ignore the reason why they didn't have elections. He's
So the
just
guy
keeping
who's
himself like a
been
dictator. And then brought
rigging
Fox News,
elections.
and now Fox News and Tucker Carlson and all these people on the right, they're all just going on and on, just calling Zelensky a dictator, you know? And they're all like, he's a dictator. He's a dictator. I mean, let's just like Tucker Carlson did this obnoxious interview. Um, who was it with? God, it was a couple weeks ago. And he's like, well, can't we just agree that he's a dictator? He's a dictator. There's no elections. He's like, no, I disagree. He's a dictator. Well,
Even so, here's the problem with that. Even
if he
even if
was,
you
but they want him to the head. But here's the thing. Hold on, because we won. Trump is now trying to pressure them, and he's having his general, who is supposed to be the one in charge of these Ukraine negotiations, which everybody was kind of surprisingly happy with. Like, hey, this guy's actually pretty good. Maybe Ukraine won't get screwed over so bad. Even he's now kind of using the Trump slash Putin line that Ukraine needs to have elections. Ukraine needs to have elections, right? And if you got 20% of your country under Russian occupation, how do those people vote? You know,
exactly, that's exactly the point that I was
at
going to
the end of
make.
a
Is like,
barrel of a
how do
gun.
you have an election? So okay, so here's a counterpoint to that. Okay, let's say that you know you think, okay, Ukraine really needs to have elections,
They
and
agree. Ukraine agrees they have
and
to have
there's no way that you can have the 20% of the country that's occupied by Russia. There's no way for you to hold elections in those parts. So if you have an election in the rest of the country, isn't that still a legitimate election?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? Sorry, my
Like,
child's
couldn't they
getting
just
a
have an election in the rest of the country?
little. Well, that's pretty unfair. Also, I mean, here, think about it. There's a number of ways you can look at it. Any way you slice it, it's not a fair election. Let's just cut out all the people who are behind in Russian occupation, who can't vote, and
Hmm.
let's say their women are getting raped and their men are getting mutilated
Oh, because
and
they are. They
I know.
absolutely are.
No, I'm just telling everybody to imagine this. So the women are getting raped and guys are getting mutilated and their kids are being taken and put on buses and trains and sent off to God knows where to have God knows what happened to them.
To Russia to be re-educated and to
And
sent to soldier school.
and not only that, a lot of them are also being subject to rape and
Yeah,
trafficking and stuff and horrible
yeah.
abuses. So, all right, I think they would probably really want to make sure that the person who won the next election in Ukraine wants to liberate them from that existence, but they won't be able to. And let's say some of the people who are all the people who are voting, man, I'm back here in Kiev now. Granted, I mean mostly Ukraine. I think they don't want to give up their land. They don't want to do that. But there's a lot more people who maybe don't really feel like continuing this war that's been for the last year and a half, 2 years, kind of slow moving lines, but
There's a lot of
a
this
little
sentiment.
bit distance of
There's a
yeah,
lot of
they're
this
tired of the
sentiment that
war or
like
war fatigue.
we
We can't
can't
win.
win.
We can't win. Let's just cut our losses, get a peace deal. I'm tired of worrying about missiles flying in here every so often. This thing's just dragging on. I don't want to be sent to the front lines for until I die. There's a lot of
But
things
you
like
have
that.
so you have these two competing ideologies. Like I think that are really prominent. One of them is um, okay, like I don't think we can win, and we don't what's the alternative here? We're just going to keep fighting until everyone's dead. That's not a good solution. Okay, that's one. The competing thing is like all of the people who have lost people, and this is a huge number of people.
Hmm.
Everybody has lost friends, family,
They
people
don't
that
just
they
want to
know.
give everything up to Russia because,
Everyone,
yeah.
and what those people like saying are like, look, we lost all these people. We've lost most of a generation that stood up to
Hmm.
tyranny and said we're not going to be a Russian pawn. We're gonna have our democracy. We're gonna uh, do the revolution of dignity. We're gonna try to join NATO. We're gonna join the European Union. Like we we want to be a part of the world. Uh, and but like most of the people in that generation have died in this war. And so the other competing mindset is like, if we
I
just
would,
give up, what did they die for?
yeah,
Like,
there's that
you
too.
know what I mean? And so like that is a hugely powerful sentiment as well. And
And
so like the thinking is like if you like yes like you there's no way to hold a perfect election, but is an imperfect I guess like the question then becomes is an imperfect election better than no election?
I would say no. Because, well, in their case, in Ukraine's case right now, I would say no. They cannot afford to have an imperfect election with, I'm sure it'd be minimal Russian interference into their election, right? I mean, they can't afford to have an imperfect election. They can't afford to have somebody who maybe is paid for by Russia or loyal to Russia, who talks the talk and acts nice and is waiting to sell them out. You know?
And I guess the other thing to think about too is that like if you're like like even in the case of America, I mean everywhere, but like definitely we just saw it in America as we just had an election. Like an election is inherently an incredibly divisive thing.
Yep.
And in this case, you have these two groups that
Hmm.
have really strong feelings, and so the election is going to like tear apart the country at a time when they need unity.
Yep. That's another thing
You
too.
know, so
There's a yeah, it's like
instead of staying together, people will start to fight for
you just
political
want this, you
parties.
just want this, you just want this. And imagine when everybody starts tearing. And I bet you that would be the big accusation. I bet you that's all you'd have to do in election time. Have one side start accusing the other ones of being pro Russia or willing to sell out to Russia or something, right? Even if you are the Russian puppet, right? You're going to accuse the other person of it, whatever. Sorry. Oh yeah, well, hey, how did they even do this? How did they do this? And, yeah, how did they go through the South so fast at the beginning of the war? Hey, those are your appointees. Hey, you did this or you did, and then nobody trusts each other. When people stop trusting each other, what I mean? Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
nasty thing. So
I mean,
I
and for
personally,
sure, like for sure, Russia is going to like put a massive influence campaign and a
oh
whole bunch of
yeah,
money behind,
exactly.
and like,
And just
they'll give them.
they
Then
are
there's going to be
dying.
political events, and that's going
They're
to give
dying to
them
put their guy
chances
back
to
in.
try to assassinate people. It's
That's the whole
like in
thing that made
addition
him
to
start
like the
invading
inherent
anyway.
divisiveness of an election, like all
Exactly.
these other problems. Yeah,
You
so
go
like
all the way
so
back to
they can't have an
2014.
election.
That's why you go all the way back to 2014, man. I mean, that's why they lost their puppet. They wanted to roll in, you know. They
Mhm.
don't have a puppet right now. They need to have an election. We can't talk to them. We need to have a chance to put our puppet back in charge. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah. Yeah. Russia's been moving in, getting appeasement everywhere. There's Transnistria, right? 1992. Um, there's all these other places here, South Ossetia. There's all these different places here. There's lots of little places where the Russians always kind of go in, right? They don't leave. When Russians go in, they don't leave.
Yeah.
It's like the Nazis. There is no like the whole bullshit about the DPR and LPR, right? Donetsk People's Republic, Luhansk People's Republic. That was like basically a creation of Russia. You know,
Yeah.
just say, oh, well, there's a bunch of Russians in here, so we're going to put a whole bunch of troops in here, and they're
Did
separatists. They want to be part of
did
us.
you watch 20 Days in Mariupol?
Nope. No,
So
I still
okay, so
haven't.
20 Days in
Uh,
Mariupol is a
I.
documentary um, about the
Mm-hmm.
invasion of Mariupol. And so at the beginning of the war, like this is one of the first towns that was
Besieged.
occupied, and
Big city, yeah.
there was a lot of sentiment among people in that, like there was division in that city. Like there were some people who, when Russia was talking about like coming in to protect the like Russian
Mm-hmm.
speakers and like bring back
Some
the
people
people
believed
who
it.
wanted to be a part of Russia into
Yeah.
the fold, there were some people there who were like, yeah, like I want to be a part of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So then Russia came to this town, and
Didn't fare well for any of them.
there was a subset of press, okay, and they mostly left until there was like this one last guy. It was like his crew, and it was two or three people. It was like one guy, a camera guy, and like another guy. Um, I'm critically not knowing exactly how many people it was, but it was like two or three guys, and they were the last ones, and they didn't leave, and they just kept documenting things. So for a
Mm-hmm.
while, like they were, I think, a BBC affiliate, and they had like a satellite phone, so they were moving around, hiding, trying to evade the Russian forces as they took over more and more of the town, city. Really, that's not a town; it's big. But as they took over more and more of the city, and like as things progressed, and so like they did a lot of the same stuff that like Israel did to Gaza. Like they cut off the food, they cut off the water, they started taking people's homes, and they didn't care. Like even the
Yeah.
people who were like cheering for them to come in, those people were like getting shot.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, they're driving a car down the street, just shoot it, and
Run
like
them over
they
the
would
tank. Just
just
do
shoot those
anything. Yeah.
people, or they'd roll it over with a tank, or they would like blow out the side of the building. Like they didn't care.
Yeah. They blew up
And
maternity hospitals. They're just killing everybody. Mass graves. Just killing everybody.
yeah.
Killing
So
them.
like this movie documents like the the invasion from people who were there 20 days
Mm-hmm.
worth before they finally escaped and got all the footage out because they were only able to, upload limited clips with the sat phone because you can't get it's just not enough connection to get tons of video and images out. But like all these news stories and like as this stuff was coming out, Russia was like deny, deny, deny.
Mm-hmm.
So like even those people who are like separatists cheering for Russia to come, like lots of those people lived in a lot of the regions where there's been conflict, and they've just destroyed the whole towns.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what they
and
did everywhere. That's what they're
even in
doing
the
everywhere.
case of Mariupol, like they immediately started like rebuilding, and now like the places where people used to live, now it's like this like fancy, freshly built condos for Russian people. It's almost like a like
That's what
you
they
know
do.
how like
Genocide.
Detroit had like a renaissance where it like became like all the property values plummeted, and so like millennials came in and started like building hipster this and that, like that's kind of like what's happening there, except instead of hipsters it's fascists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like letting them in isn't good for anyone.
No. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, it
There's
won an
not.
Oscar. You should definitely, I think
Yeah,
it's
I
on
know.
YouTube.
I've wanted to see it. Nobody here. I mean, it's not that they don't want to see it. It's just they don't think their stomach would handle it, and they think it'd be too awful to watch. I do want to watch. I've been wanting to watch that thing for so long. I mean, at
It-
the same time, I've seen a lot of the film footage of this Ukraine Russia war. I've been watching it every day. So it's not like
like
it's going to shock
when
me
I
anymore.
saw that, like it was really like it was really heartbreaking because like
Mm-hmm.
all the images and all the little stories from it were like this was my first time seeing them,
Oh wow.
and it's just like it just rips your heart out to watch like all of
Mm-hmm.
it happen and just how it progressed so fast in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
And like uh I was watching it with my wife and she had followed along with all of it as it was happening. So like she had already cried over all of it.
Yeah.
Like it was already like it was like, oh yeah, I cried over that 2 years ago, and she's like, she knew every single story that came out in it because she remembered when it happened, when it broke.
Yeah. It's awful. The things that are happening to them are awful. No, there is another school of thought taking back to the whole Ukrainian election things. I mean, at the same time, the longer the place is occupied by Russia, the less and less chances are of, it sounds horrible, getting people out of there. You know what I mean? I mean, they're systematic. I mean, it is genocide over there. They are going bananas to try to kill everybody who's Ukrainian who supports Ukraine. You know, there's people, obviously, plenty of people are there still, and they're trying to act like they're all pro Russia. You know, and I mean, there's some FSB people in there. They do anything else, or keep taking their kids, or killing. But they are making an effort to systematically get rid of all of the Ukrainians and get rid of all their language and kill all the people and destroy all of their houses and destroy all their monuments and get rid of anything that
And the
has a trace of
museums and the
Ukraine
history and the
museum
art.
and replace it with Russia shit. I mean, so the longer the battle lines are kind of like stalemated, like it is, the places that are behind those front lines, I mean, it is the definition of ethnic cleansing. You know what I mean? That's what they're trying to do. So, you know, uh,
So like
maybe it's just as well having an
giving up
election.
on Ukraine really is like giving up on the
Humanity.
Ukrainian people.
That is
And
more like
again, this is after, the only reason that Ukraine is in this predicament to begin with is
they gave up their nukes.
because of the nuclear disarmament
Yeah,
and
so they gave up their nukes at our pressure. We pressured them to do it too.
Russia and
We.
America both like agreed to protect them and defend them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the whole bullshit about, oh, well, they were going to join a defensive treaty that would threaten us because then if we invaded them, then we would be going to war with everybody else. That was just bullshit line. But
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with that anyway. It just had to do with the fact that their puppet was gone. They didn't
that was the
ask
other
to
thing is
join
they kept
NATO.
saying
They
the NATO
never
bases were there.
they never asked to join NATO until after Russia invaded. They want to be in the EU. They were pro-West. They
They
may have
wanted to
talked
be in the
about, hey, we'd
EU.
like to we'd like to be in NATO one day, blah blah blah, whatever. We want to be closer to the West. They never applied to be in NATO until after Russia invaded. So the whole thing about them joining NATO as a reason why they invaded is all bullshit. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, but like they should.
and they have a
The
right
reason
to. Anybody?
they wanted to be in the European Union is because
Yes,
it gives you
financial stability a
like
little bit.
so like this is something that like Americans don't have to deal with. But like if you're from a good country, every other country wants you to come. It's easy to travel there. It's easy to move there because they want you to come and bring your money, which is more valuable, and spend it there. But if you're from a country that's not like in favor, it's much harder for you to travel. It's much more difficult for you to get a visa to be able to go there, to be able to do education there, to be able to live there. But the beauty of the European Union is that if your country is a member of the European Union, everyone there can freely travel and trade around all of those places. So it's this like massive economic boom,
Yeah.
education boom, like it brings in like a whole bunch of change and freedoms and like capabilities for the people to live there. And that's why the revolution of dignity happened, because like they basically had a series of elections where like, okay, yeah, they were running on this platform of like, yeah, we're going to join the European Union. And then like they got elected and they were like, you know what, sorry, we're like, oh, it's going to be a few years. And then they were like, actually, we're not going to do it.
Because
And
Russia,
that's when the
because
revolution
Russia
started.
was the real one that the player had, pulling the strings. Yeah.
Yeah, because Russia always just wanted to take the country back and erase its identity and just make them a part of Russia again. Like they've never gotten over that.
And just for
Like,
business in general, it's good if you're in Europe and you want to sell your goods to other places in Europe. people don't know about that here. Most people in America don't. They have VAT taxes, value added tax, VAT, right? If you're in the EU, your country is a member of an EU country, and you're selling your stuff from one business to another business. Right? Say you're sending raw materials from New Ukraine, which they have a ton of, right? You're sending those raw materials to, a processing company in Germany. You would not pay those value added taxes. You can actually, it's like free trade between, you know what I mean? It would be a huge boom for their economy, you know?
Hmm.
All the countries that left the Soviet Union, everybody went through a rocky period, but the ones who were more Western, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, you know, the countries that were more Western based, they boomed. You know, I mean, actually, everybody pretty much boomed, except for like uh, the ones who really stayed tight with Russia. You know, so I mean, Ukraine boomed, even though they went, they weren't totally pro. They didn't go all west, but they kind of had that leaning. They were kind of in between, you know. But yeah, I mean, business
Yeah,
with Europe is big. You know.
Ukraine is like a stunningly like beautiful country.
Mm-hmm.
Like the number of the number of places, like the villages and the nature is like stunning, but also like the cities and the architecture and the museums and like all of the like cultural and historical stuff, like the castles, like all that stuff is like super impressive. And like all their major cities were like huge modern beautiful cities, like better than some American cities, like in terms of how well they're managed, how clean they are, um, and the facilities that they have. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's just sad. I mean, I'm really hoping they don't roll over on them. I'm hoping it's so sad too. My best case scenario is my best case, the shittiest, the best shittiest outcome is some version of them basically giving Russia what they've already had, you know, and that's what I think is most likely. The most likely scenario I think is Russia takes everything they've grabbed already, and hopefully we still give Ukraine aid and do the things we already agreed to, but I don't believe Trump's going to do that. It would take Russia a few years really to get back up to strength to try to do more stuff. And the best hope is that, and then it's more than 4 years away. And then in 4 years, we have an administration that would stand up for him. I just don't know if the Western countries would still have the stomach for it again or something to help them again. You know, I don't know. It's
oh
not a
my
good
god.
situation. I mean, it sucks, man. It really sucks. But
So I just started reading about this actually because I was trying to find something to be like, okay, what is the latest? Because I hadn't read, but the very first thing in here in Ukraine, there's confusion and concern. A former senior Ukrainian official told ABC's News they don't understand why Trump has given up two major negotiating points before talks have begun:
mm-hmm.
no NATO membership
Yeah.
and territory. No NATO membership is like the hugest thing because without NATO membership, there's nothing to stop
Them
Putin
from
from
going
just
in
coming
again.
back later to finish him off. He's just going to build strength, rebuild all the tanks that they lost, and then roll back in with a bunch more meat shields to throw at their bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not going to be like a, well, I guess this doesn't take off like a peacekeeping zone, but
I mean, France and Britain both agreed to something like 50,000 troops apiece or 75,000 troops apiece. You know, but the border is so big, you can't. That's not that's not nearly enough. That's not nearly enough. You know,
yeah.
and even if they did, I mean, I mean,
I think the purpose of those troops though is
it's just
that
to be like, hey, if you invade, you're attacking us. I mean, I know
yes,
that's
yes.
true, but either way, it's just yeah. Either
Yeah,
way,
Trump now appears to care more about relations with Russia than Ukraine. Russian officials are also signaling they will not stop fighting unless they get what they want.
but
Talks
also
can
here's the thing
begin
though.
and fighting will continue.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing though, I mean, NATO membership though. I mean, we can't. They can't have a deal that says Ukraine can't be a part of NATO, right? because I mean the rules of NATO say that anybody can apply. Now, what that really means is Trump is saying that he would veto it. The United States would veto any NATO membership, I guess, and try and pressure other people, I guess, to veto it. But
Hmm.
NATO rules are NATO. That's not the U.S. to determine. NATO is not the one negotiating. We're talking about it. You know
But
what I mean?
can the U.S. veto it?
Yeah. Every single and that's how NATO works. Every country in the alliance has to agree. That's how Sweden and when Sweden and Norway were in there. That's why, like Orban was holding it up for a long time. Orban and Erdogan in Turkey because
Ah,
and they were holding up, and then we finally agreed to give Erdogan some more weapons, and he's like, okay, all
a
right,
few
cool,
$1 billion, I think.
and then Hungary, um, they put a little bit more pressure on him, basically saying, hey, you want to keep getting this stuff from EU funds. They basically lorded over him the fact that they could cut off EU money to Hungary to get Orban to drop his objection to it.
That's what. Okay, yeah, I remember there was something about 5 billion or 20 billion or something like that. That's the thing I'm thinking of is that funding.
So, yeah, I mean, my worst case scenario obviously is more frightening because
Well, the worst case is
the
that
worst case is he's going
they.
to sell out. He's going to sell out all the Ukrainians, and he's going to sell them out to Trump, to Putin, and he'll give classified information to the Russians like he did before, and in the Oval Office last time around, But he'll, I think, I mean, worst case scenario is he's going to actively help Russia because here they stop the war, right? They stop the war. There's plenty of Ukrainian politicians. I mean, for Russia's pretty good at assassinating people, right? It's kind of harder when you're in an active conflict, and the Ukrainian intelligence has been great about stopping these assassination attempts and stuff.
Mhm.
But I mean, Russia, wait, they play the long game when it comes to assassinating people, you know, and they do. They assassinate former KGB people who turn. They assassinate people 20 years, 30 years later. They kill their families. I mean, you know, Russia stops the war, they go through and start killing politicians and buying up politicians and killing people and doing things like that and try to get people to be under their thumb and try to turn it into another puppet regime again. Well, I heard a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've always thought Trump was going to sell out Ukraine. I thought that's the first thing I thought about on the election day. I was like, the first thing I did when I was like all upset, I was like, oh my god, Ukraine is so fucked. That's the first thing I thought about the election. I mean, yes, America was fucked, but right at the same time, I was like, oh my god, I cannot believe this is happening. Ukraine's gonna be fucked. This is gonna be fucked. This is gonna happen. Oh my god, you know. I was cautiously optimistic after a couple of weeks. I was like, wow, Keith Kellogg, and okay, these guys, maybe things are okay. Maybe some other people, because he doesn't really give a shit about Ukraine. He just, whatever. But no, it seems. I think he's gonna I think he's going to roll over on him pretty hard. That's my gut thing. That's my gut feeling. Hope I'm
But
wrong.
so you think there's going to be some sort of compromise? It's like no NATO.
Oh, I think
Russia
it's
gets a bunch of territory, but there will still be a Ukraine. Or do you
for
think
a while. No, I think
they're
for a
gonna
while
just
there will
get
be.
everything?
I think for a while there will be Ukraine. I think it'll be akin to post World War One Germany. I think it'll be something absolutely horrible. I think it'll be something like, okay, Ukraine, you have to give up all these territories, and you have to agree that that is all Russian land. Maps are redrawn. You have no claim over all of those territories, Crimea and Zaporizhia and blah blah blah, and you know what I mean, Donetsk and Luhansk. You have to give it up, and you can't go into NATO, and you can't be in the EU. You have to have neutrality. You have to do this, and then there'll be some sort of lip service paid about security that whatever if somebody violates it or whatever. But I don't see the Trump administration doing shit for Ukraine when they want to cut off all U.S. aid, AID, you know what I mean, which does small potatoes stuff that is hugely important for our security and our relationships around the world. If they want to cut that off, right, to have goodwill around the world, that's small potatoes money.
It's not
Why do you think
even
the Trump administration?
goodwill. Like it's not even goodwill. Like the reason that we have.
Well, the USAID was started to stop communism spread, right, and make friends with places that like Russia wanted to make inroads with these people. Hey, you'd be better off being friends with America. And you say, here, we're going to help you do this. And it's like a,
I'm not,
yeah,
I'm saying it's like it's not just goodwill. Like
no.
the reason that they have Ebola outbreaks in other countries isn't because like Ebola isn't dangerous. It's because we are in those places taking care of it there to prevent it from coming here.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take care of AIDS in the other country, then fewer of those people travel here and spread AIDS here, and that's true of a whole bunch of different diseases.
Yeah.
That's another piece of the mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I, yeah, I don't know. But
It's
I
like
don't,
I think
I just don't see.
worst case scenario is there's no more Ukraine.
You saw Russia's
Russia takes
plan.
the whole thing, and
You,
then they
you
go to
saw
war
Russia,
with Poland in a few years. That's the
you saw
worst
Russia's
case.
plan. You saw Putin's plan like a couple months ago, right? Where
No.
the U.S. would be given the western Ukraine, where Lviv is, right, and Russia basically takes everything else. That was an idea floated by Putin a while back, splitting it up
Why,
into three regions of Ukraine. That's what they were floating a couple months ago. It
why
was
would
ridiculous.
America have any territory?
Well, maybe because Donald Trump. Maybe they know something about Donald Trump. This is before he started announcing we were going to take over Greenland and Panama and all these other places. Maybe they knew something about Trump's desires to have a big empire again or something, or whatever you want to call it. Um, oh God, where was it at, man? The plan
Maybe
U.S.
that's the
owned.
deal. It's like, ah, we'll get an empire, but you will also get an empire. Let's all have empires.
Here we go. Russian plan sees Ukraine threatened into three parts. Here we go. This is from there's an article from the Kiev Independent. The document put forward four different scenarios of global world order development, two seen as favorable to Moscow and two disadvantageous. Where was it at, though? There was one where they're talking about breaking it up. They wanted the country divided into thirds. They said the country's eastern regions, particularly partially and fully Russian occupied territories, would be annexed by Russia. The western lands would be disputed territories that could be claimed by neighboring countries, including Hungary and Poland and Romania. The remaining territory, including Kiev, would be a Russian controlled puppet state. So the document envisages the effective dissolution of the independent Ukrainian state. Yeah, there's here's where this document they got. Ukrainian intelligence got it. I can't read this. I'm going to send this to you and let Katya read it.
Okay.
Because the document here is all in. Uh, I don't know if it's Russian or Ukrainian.
You can Google Translate it though.
Maybe, but that
That's
that
okay.
always works so well. So I'm just going to send these to you, and you can let Katya look at it. There you
Sure.
go.
Oh.
Anyway, maybe we
Yeah,
can talk about it next week.
that sounds pretty worst case scenario ish.
Yeah. So I'm not too optimistic, But however, Ukraine. Oh my God! Since we're talking about Ukraine now, there is reasons to believe that Ukraine, even if Donald Trump does what I think he'll do, which is just fucking turn over, and say "f you" and give the middle finger to Zelensky in Ukraine, right?
Hmm.
There is reason to believe that Ukraine might be able to still hold on and outlast Russia and outlast, this. And one of the big things is their drone assault for the first time. This is actual military history, right? Um, their drone army actually took positions from the Russians. They used
Mm.
combined drone arms warfare, air drones, land based drones. Right? They have these old robotic drones. I mean, they're basically go karts with fucking big ass machine guns on top of it, right? With belts that feed it through on the bottom, through the inside of it.
Hmm.
And literally, there's like little teams. They had 130, I believe it was 130 or 150 people, right, in little buildings inside, underground, whatever, with a bunch of screens up, and they were conducting aerial drones, right, for surveillance, kamikaze drones, right,
Hmm.
and the ground-based the robot drones that roll in, and they were doing the whole damn thing, man. They were using drone jammers on there. jamming them up, flying over their kamikaze drones, using the little drones like little like RC cars, riding in there with these things, and they cleared out Russian trenches and they actually pushed back the Russians without losing a single person because there was no people, and they drove them back with their drone stuff. First time in
Wow.
military history in the world that happened. Where a whole the it was troops on a battlefield against fully robotic people there and advancing and taking positions, and then the Ukrainians came up behind all the drones and just secured the areas after it's cleared out. And yeah, I think that was near Pokrovsk. Let me see, where was it
Wow,
at?
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and their drone stuff has been just going nuts. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Like America's not the only one. Like America is like obviously we have a huge military, we can throw our weight around with whatever, but like the most threatened by Putin's push for expansionism, like more empire, is the European countries, like the countries that are in NATO, you know, because it is their personal security. Like they're the next one over to get invaded. Like
Yeah.
you're Germany, you're France, you're the rest of these other countries in NATO that are close. You're Poland,
Oh,
for example. Um,
Lipsy, by the way.
and just because like Donald Trump makes some deal with Putin, like that might mean like American support goes away, but all those other countries have their own interest and their own desire to stop it. Like they were giving them jets. Like just I saw a story about jets recently. I don't remember when exactly,
Mm-hmm.
but those other countries could still step up in a way, even if America doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And
there's still like a lot of room. Just because America throws them under the bus doesn't mean
they
that
were
it's
going to
over.
fold. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because
And
they've
like
got the
this
whole
article,
rest of Europe that's got a vested interest in an
well, the whole
independent
rest of Europe
Ukraine because
is,
it's a buffer.
yeah, but the whole rest of Europe is, God, not looking so hot themselves too. But here, I sent you the link on your Discord, by the way, and I was wrong. It
Hmm.
wasn't. It was in Lipsy, right? It was and yeah, there's a whole big article. I think you and Katya should read it. It's freaking awesome. Yeah, because the whole thing was expected to fail anyway. They were really doing it as a test. It was a test run
Mm,
to see how they could do it. They never expected it to win, right? They were doing a test, all drones, Um, yeah,
there's
it
one
was,
thing Russia's good at, it's losing bodies.
well, yeah, exactly. But it's a really good article. Talk about the whole thing about the advancements, how the mission went down, everything else. Oh, it was less than 100 soldiers. That's not 150. It was less than 100 soldiers. That's including the pilots, the people who do the logistics, planners, support staff, all of them. And
Wow.
yeah, it was half a dozen kamikaze and machine gun mounted drones. Um, FPV drones. One FPV drone had the mounted assault rifle on on the FPV drone. The copter drones, the big copter drones, went in there dropping artillery shells, flying. I mean, it's impressive, and you have pictures, videos, everything like here, and it's really so.
Okay, I'll include the link to that. Yeah,
It's really really
maybe
cool.
maybe this one will be the one about the drone army instead of the one where we wing it.
Just leave it the one we wing it. It's fine. This is true. And yeah, and Zelensky was offering up the minerals. I mean, Zelensky's doing the damn thing over there, man. I mean, honestly, I feel so much for that guy, man. Because dude, he was put in the most impossible. I mean, people can like him or not like him. People in Ukraine can like him or not like his politics or not like him. He wasn't popular before the war. I don't think he would have gotten reelected. Russia's stupid too, man. They probably could have gotten another puppet in there because he wasn't doing too hot in the polls.
Hmm.
But dude, the most impossible situation going to war with Russia. You know what I mean? And
Well, so
very resilient. I mean, God,
there
so
are thoughts about that also. So like it wasn't supposed. This is I don't know. This is like a conspiracy theory that I've heard bits and pieces of from people. But the idea is that you know maybe Zelensky knew that the invasion was coming because there were some decisions such as um, they knew that Russia, like so in 2022, okay, Russia had been moving troops over in an aggressive way. They've been kind of signaling like this aggression was
well,
coming.
yeah. We told them,
But
yeah.
also they
They
had
saw.
there had been a simmering conflict for a decade
Yeah.
from the time that they took
Yep.
Crimea and parts of
Okay.
Donetsk. So, or I'm sorry, the Donbass. So uh, they had mined the area from Crimea into the rest of Ukraine. It was super covered in mines,
Mhm.
and Zelensky decided to unmine it, even knowing that there were all those that conflict. They took up all the mines and demined it. So like that was one of those decisions that like looked really questionable after the invasion happened. And then when the invasion happened, they came in and they took so much territory so fast. I think that like this theory is that like the expectation was that Zelensky was in on it and he was going to say like, okay, yeah, Russia, you can have the country, like you took over, and then just let it go back, let it be captured in exchange for there being, you know, a different puppet government in Ukraine. I think that was what was going to happen. And then they knew that. And the only reason that they switched off of that is because the people came out, like normal citizens, not even just the military, but normal citizens came out and started like throwing Molotov cocktails and shooting them with AKs and just like taking over these this Russian military forces that like weren't expecting any resistance, and the people started taking over, and that like they he realized that like there was no way to be like, oh, we'll just give it over, we'll just give it away without a fight, when so many people were already fighting and having successes. And so that changed the game plan. And so
I
like
really,
the
I've
plan
been,
wasn't to have a war, the plan was just to roll in and take it and have it be like a, you know, like it was like arranged, like that is the conspiracy theory.
I really want to hear about that because I really want to read up on that because I haven't found anything about the demining on there. I did read about, some of the generals, who were supposed to be, like in charge of the defense in the South, and how they
Mm-hmm.
found out that several of those were on the payroll of the Russians. You know what I mean? And there was things like that. I really want to see any real story about the demining and see why it was. Because I I need to see some sort of real article talking about when it was demined, why it was demined, who did it, what was the reasoning
Here's
for
the
it,
first thing I found. I don't know
and
how
not
great
just
this is, but
somebody saying it like, "Oh, they rolled in. There was no mines. They just rolled in." That doesn't
so
tell you that anyone else decided
look
to.
at the link that I just put in the Notion. I'm gonna read I'm gonna read some stuff from this. I'm just gonna read from the top. I'm not super familiar with this article, so we'll see how it
So,
goes.
with Notion.
Mines on border with Crimea checked 9 days before invasions. Records still available. Thursday, 21st September 2023. Military personnel of the armed forces have kept a log of landmine inspections on the Crimean Isthmus. Excuse me. And the last inspections took place on 15th February 2022, 9 days before the full-scale Russian invasion began. Details: UP contacted military personnel who assured them no one had removed the mines laid in 2014 to 2015 from the bridges on the isthmuses, and if this had been done, then records of such actions would definitely remain in military reports and orders. The mines themselves were recorded on the official forms of units serving on the administrative border with occupied Crimea. All devices and power networks were checked twice a month. Every first and third week of the month, bomb disposal experts would go to the Kherson front, and every second and fourth week to the Melitopol front. The 808th Separate Support Regiment kept a separate logbook for checking the condition of mine barriers.
Mm-hmm.
It did not just record the dates of inspections. People who carried out these inspections put their names and signatures there. If they saw any malfunctions, they also had to record it in the logbook.
So it doesn't sound like he ordered any mines to be removed. It sounds like people were signing off that they were all there and working, and they're all checking on them and signing off on them. Sounds to me like it. Yeah, it sounds like that's probably why they prosecuted some of the people who were in charge of the defense in the South and said they were conspiring with Russia. Probably because they were. I don't think that was you know, Zelensky had them secretly go in there and remove all the mines 9 days before the invasion. When up until then, they had been getting all the intelligence and he'd been trying to keep panic down. And hey, we're going to do this. We're going to negotiate. And I don't.
So, okay, so
Conspiracy theory
if you
doesn't
get
hold up.
down
I
to
don't
the
think it does.
bottom, if you get
Yeah.
down to the bottom, it says background. Major General Andrei Sokolov, who at the beginning of the invasion was deputy commander of Operational Command Pivden South and was in charge of the Pivden grouping of troops, said that the bridges to Kamiah in Chandhar had been mined since 2014. Excuse me. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. No, not yet. Excuse me. Thank you. There we go. I'll cut that out. Had been mined since 2014, but they had not been blown up at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. A soldier who served on the border with Crimea on 24th February 2022 also told how he tried to blow up the bridges on Chandhar. So this is where this conspiracy theory comes in. So like there were bridges that would have prevented them from being able to get in,
Mm-hmm.
and they were allegedly mined, but they were not exploded.
Yeah,
Why?
and that was why they went after the general, right? Wasn't it one of the not general, maybe colonel, something like that? There was a couple of people who were in charge of the defense on there who didn't blow the bridges and didn't let that, and they got prosecuted, I believe, for working with the Russians. Who was it? Who was it? I mean, God, this is not a time to do live while we're recording, but I can look this up later because I remember there was a lot of talk about that. I just had never heard until you mentioned about, oh, why did he demine it? I never heard about that. So um, anyway,
Huh.
what's that?
I'm just reading the article. So it leaks to an article about a guy who was the soldier who tried to blow it up. And he's like, it was really chaotic in the command room. There were these instructions in these envelopes that had they were opened if necessary. And in those envelopes, there were instructions for connecting explosive devices. We made the connections, and I was left to detonate it. There was no longer any communications. The radio stations didn't work. The commander was engaged in staffing, running around the positions to keep to place everyone. Mines were already exploding. It was very loud. You couldn't shout loud enough to be heard. Therefore, I essentially acted myself and personally made the decision to blow it up. I tried to detonate it, but the explosion didn't happen. I tried to reconnect and check the wires. Maybe some mistake had happened, or something was connected incorrectly. Reconnected and try again. I did it 3 times. There was no explosion. I'm not an explosives expert, but there are 2 options here. Either a sabotage group was landed or the detonation wires were damaged by mortar fire.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to look. I have to get some more
Yeah.
sourcing on the rest of
Yeah.
these.
Yeah. So I don't think Zelensky ordered them to allow them to come in there. I mean, you know, that seems a little far fetched to me. Yeah. But anyway, um, but there were plenty of other people who have even admitted to it and everything else. People charged with treason, and people at the beginning, at the outset of the war, people during the war. We all know that there's still people, Russian intelligence and spies, feeding information to the Russians during their war. There's some reasons, like the HIMARS. Like the first few HIMARS got blown up. A couple months ago, a few months ago, and it was obvious that it was passed. Intelligence was passed to them. You know what I mean? With how they found them so quickly, and they wouldn't have just had these drones where they were. And what I mean? There's a few things. There's like a train. There's like a train place where they just very briefly they were stopping in weird places, and they knew the train would be at a certain place. What I mean? It's not like there's been times where stuff has been getting uh, leaked and sent to the Russians. I don't believe for a second that Zelensky did some sort of move where he just like let them walk in just for a political benefit. I don't believe that for a second. So,
Do you think it was? Do you think if it was like not Zelensky, do you think it was somebody else in a position of
well, there
authority?
was some things like that. I mean, there were. Um, there's been a reason why they've been doing some like treason charges against some people in Ukraine, some military people and everything else. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You know, I mean, I mean, it's happened.
Mm.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's about that. You know,
So I
I'm
was
just
going to say this a while ago, but you went to the drone war, which was
yeah,
kind of some
cool.
good news. But I was say like, you want to switch to a small piece of good news.
Yes.
So there was a New York doctor who was um, prescribing and sending uh, mifepristone or mifepristone through the
Oh yeah, I
mail
saw that.
to Louisiana.
Yep.
And Louisiana wanted to have her extradited to Louisiana so they could charge her using, Louisiana law for helping people to have abortions. Because I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. Uh, mifepristone, mifepristone. What
Mifepristone. Mifepristone.
mifepristone? Okay, mifepristone is like it's used for a bunch of things, but like one of the things is like the main things is that it's used for medication abortions. Um, but yeah, so in the first ruling in this case challenging the shield laws intended to protect doctors in states that support abortion rights who send abortion pills to states with bans, the judge fined the New York doctor and ordered her to stop sending abortion pills to Texas, but she won't be extradited.
Yeah.
So
Small wins.
not 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 extradited uh, to Gilead yet for now.
Hmm.
This is
Yeah.
what passes for good news.
Not yet.
So, let's see. Let's check in with Trump golf track. 24 days in office, 5 days spent golfing. That's 20.83% of the time of the days that he's spent golfing. Um, price of eggs as of January 31st, 7.52. As of February 12th, $7.55. Price of gasoline, December 30th, $3.01. As of February 10th, $3.13. So
Oh, wait.
gas is up, eggs are up.
Only in
Huh.
America, by the way.
Well, it's because we have the bird flu and all the birds are dying.
Yeah, so it's only in the United States and nowhere else.
I don't think that it's nowhere else. I just think that like it's impacting our birds
It's also
here
because, is in a way though, Americans have themselves to blame.
because of the horrible conditions that we do for our factory farms.
Not only that, yes, that is half of it, and the other half of it is the way they want to. I mean, personally, I'll admit it. I'm a fan of it, even though I know it's not good for you. Right? The washing of the eggs before they get to the grocery shelves. When they do those washing, they weaken out all the little membranes on there. That's why the eggs go bad so quick, and that's why you know people get sick from them and salmonella and everything else. Why do you have to have them refrigerated? If you ever go around the world, why are these eggs not refrigerated? And how are they people not getting sick? It's because they have to be refrigerated because we wash the eggs so much we strip out the membranes and make them susceptible to all the problems.
No, like the problem is that the birds are getting sick and
That's
then
true too.
dying, and so like, or they're recognizing that they're sick and they're killing them all. And
They're
so
they're
even
killing
in
them
some
all.
places where they say that like the birds are free range, the birds have like 12 by 15 inches per bird,
Yeah,
averaged out over this whole massive indoor facility. So like they really don't have any space. They're standing on top of each other. They're pooping on top of each other. They're spreading disease. So like if one
mm-hmm.
bird gets sick, they all get sick. And because it
Yeah,
happens all the time, they pump them full of antibiotics. And because they pump them full of antibiotics, the diseases become like mutate and become more and more
yeah,
antibiotic resistance. And like part of the problem with antibiotics for like general health in people is that uh, people use antibiotics, and so it causes they become less effective because the diseases, the bacteria mutates and becomes more resistant as people are using it. But it's much worse in how much it's used in animals because they're so much more medicated. They're just pumping them full of this stuff all the time because they put them in these squalorous, like horrible disease-ridden conditions where they're all getting sick. Just in order to not die of infection, they all have to be pumped up on antibiotics their entire life. So like if you're eating the meat, you're eating this like antibiotic ridden meat, and then at the same time you're causing the viruses to mutate. And what's happened here is that like finally a version of bird flu has become so virulent that like the antibiotics can't stop it. And if one bird gets it in a flock, they spread it by contact, like they breathe on each other or they touch each other or they touch their poop. and then they get it, and then they're sick, and that's how it spreads to cows. Like they'll shit on the ground, or they'll shit on the cows, because it's any bird. It's not just chickens. It's any bird. So like normal birds that fly around will get sick and they'll be flying around,
Hmm.
spreading it through their feces, through their feathers, through whatever, and so other animals are getting it too. So like there's a whole rash of like cats and dogs are getting sick from just like eating chicken
Yep.
meat, because when they prepare chicken meat for animals, it's not to the same rigorous standard as when they prepare it for humans.
Mm.
So
Anyway, but yeah,
yeah,
right north of us, though, Canada, 275 for a dozen eggs in Canada. Their farms are smaller and more geographically spread out, and they reduce the risks of the widespread issues like bird flu. And yeah, 275 in U.S. money. In Canadian dollars, it's like $3 and some change, 377, something like that. 393,
man.
whatever. Just 275 in U.S. dollars for a dozen eggs. So,
The other thing I wanted to mention on the Trump golf track is he recently went to the Super Bowl. He was actually the first president to ever
oh, it
go to
costs
the
so much
Super
money.
Bowl.
Didn't save for the whole thing, obviously, which yeah,
Yeah, but
whatever.
like that is the thing, is that it cost like $20 million of taxpayer money to like have him go to the Super Bowl, which
Yep.
is like offensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, as we are kicking the crutches out from Tiny Tim, we are also sending the president to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's us. That's America.
Yep. Waste, fraud, and abuse. Waste.
I don't. I'm sure there's no way we could get it, but like if we could, I would want the theme song for this podcast to be "This Is America."
I
I
prefer
think
no
that would be.
FX's We Called It America.
I don't know that one.
It's a
Maybe I
great
would.
song. You should read the lyrics and listen to the song. It's a great, yeah, it's a great song.
Well, maybe we should. Maybe we should send some emails and see if somebody wants to let us use their music.
Yeah, I don't think Fat Mike from NoFX would sue. He doesn't sue all the people who do stuff on YouTube and put his stuff up there. So, in
I
fact,
mean,
lots of times he comments on it and gives thumbs up to it and stuff and talks about it.
there is nothing for them to like. We don't have any profits for them to take. So I mean,
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you all the profits we had.
you can have it all, Fat Mike. From all 20 of our viewers.
Yeah.
Okay. Closing thoughts, positivities, recommendations, predictions, anything. What do you got?
Let's see. Positive thoughts, hopeful thoughts. All right. Positive prediction. There will be, there will be another Luigi Mangione, hopefully, or maybe okay, or maybe he'll just have a heart attack.
He is old and unhealthy.
Yeah,
Maybe Vance doesn't need to be the heir apparent to inherit the throne.
yeah, yeah. So I don't got anything yet right now. Hopefully the courts keep stopping him.
My positivity is people are fighting back. Employees are. There was this big thing on Reddit about one of the employees who was like, yeah, knowing Trump was coming in and Project 2025 and everything, like I was like just looking for the door. I was like ready to find any way out to get out of here. But then they sent this fork in the road email, and now I am like the only thing that I want to do, like the thing that I most want to do, is to stay here and get in their way because fuck them. Like that's the attitude of the federal employees, and we need more of that. And there are still people out there taking the fight to them. And to our point about Democrats, going on tour and getting out into the streets, they're not at that level, but they are going out and protesting. They are going to the buildings and demanding stuff and causing trouble and having press conferences. Uh, so they're stirring. They're not. I wouldn't call them mobilized, but there are signs of life. Uh, and finally, spring is coming
I hope
soon,
so.
soonish. It will soon be more warm and less frigid. So we got that to look forward to.
Yeah. One day, like a miracle, it'll just go away when the weather gets warm.
We got, what, 21, 22 months until midterms?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we really do have to wrap this up. Um, so yeah, let's hope. Let's hope we still have free and fair elections by then.
All right. Stay woke.
Yeah, stay woke.